Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Skype sessions. These are the more informal chats that we have here at Pints with Jack. Now, a couple of years ago, I went to my first C.S. Lewis conference, and it was held at Azusa Pacific University, round about at the LA area. And actually, that was where I first met Andrew Lazo, one of our co-hosts. And that was where I really started to take the whole C.S. Lewis thing rather seriously. And it was because of that that I got on the email list of the C.S. Lewis Foundation. And just the other day, I received an email from them advertising an upcoming virtual C.S. Lewis conference. So I reached out and I replied to the email and said, I'd love you to come on one of the Skype sessions and tell us about what's going on. And so we can share it with all of our listeners. And so Stephen Elmore, he responded to my email and he's here now. Stephen, welcome to Pints with Jack.
Thank you, David. It's good to be here. I've listened to your podcast before, especially on the Screw Tape Letters, and definitely we have a long-standing friendship with Andrew Lazo. He's one of our long-term volunteers and staff members. So say hi to him when you get a chance. Unless maybe I will first. So we're excited for the virtual conference that we have coming up. It's called the C.S. Lewis Virtual Summit, and if you would like more information, it's www.cslewis.org/summit, SUMMIT. And, with COVID happening, we weren't able to hold our big conference in England this summer. We also tend to hold a retreat in Houston, in the Houston area at a campground called Camp Allen. And, for an organization that's a nonprofit that thrives on having events, and most of our mission happens in our conferences, we kind of had to pivot. So we're doing our first ever virtual conference. It will be on November 12th, 13th, and 14th. So that's a Thursday night, Friday night, and a Saturday morning or afternoon, depending on your time zone. And we're excited to have a great lineup of speakers: Karen Swallow Pryor, Malcolm Guite, who many of you may know. I think he's been on the podcast before.
He's scheduled, and Karen is as well, because they produced a new version of Spirits in Bondage, and Karen wrote the introduction. Yes. So we'll be doing a C.S. Lewis Poetry Month later this season, so she'll be on for that, as will Malcolm, both for that and for the Owen Barfield Month.
Wonderful. I saw their names on your website, but I wasn't sure if it was coming up or not. And then beyond that, Andrew Peterson, singer-songwriter and also fiction writer. And then Terry Glaspie. He's an editor, writer, focuses a lot on the world of Christianity and the arts. So the theme of the conference is Deeper Magic. So that's a reference to Narnia. C.S. Lewis and the Serious Business of Heaven. So we're mixing our Lewis quotes a little bit.
It's all bound together by joy, so I think you're okay.
I don't think anybody complains too much if there's too much Lewis to things. So Deeper Magic, it's a reference to Narnia. It's the deeper magic that's in the world of Narnia, beyond what even the witch knows from the beginning times. So we're looking at that as especially given the fact that this is going to be a week after the very contentious U.S. election.
Wait, there's an election happening? I hadn't noticed. I hadn't even been on the news.
No. And so we're looking at focusing on the deeper things, the big things in the Christian world: faith, joy, hope, love. And we know that, there are going to be a lot of people that are celebrating, a lot of people, 50% maybe, depending on how it plays out at the polls, that are going to be cursing things and angry and upset, and mourning. So we're looking at this as, on one hand, focusing on the bigger picture issues in the Christian world. We're citizens of heaven even before we're citizens of the earth. So we're looking at that kind of perspective. And then the serious business of heaven bit, it comes from Letters to Malcolm, chiefly on prayer, and the quote, kind of the full sentence of the quote, is "Joy is the serious business of heaven." So we're looking at focusing on the less serious maybe than the election, but also more serious than the election moments. So, our events really are kind of, our tagline is faith, reason and imagination in the company of friends. So it really kind of gives you kind of a picture of it. Lewis himself was, known for all of those things and living in many ways a holistic Christian walk, focusing on all those areas at once, which is, very unique in terms of our Christian figures, especially the imagination and the creativity part of the other two. So we try to do everything we can to in the spirit of Lewis and the motto of Lewis, to represent those things to our constituents too.
And I was looking through the materials, and so are there going to be breakout groups after each of the talks?
Yeah, so each of the talks will be a 20 to 25 minute presentation, almost a lecture or presentation by the speaker, thematic. And then after that, we'll have about another 20 to 25 minutes of question and answer session with a moderator interviewing. And then it'll be followed by another 45 minutes optional discussion groups. It'll be small breakout groups on Zoom, just asking questions about what they got out of the session, any comments, takeaways, whatever they learned that day. And it's kind of the real opportunity to get to know a few people a little bit, as much as one can on Zoom.
Sure. And so people can sign up for this conference directly from the website, and I'll put a link in the show notes and in the comments of this YouTube video so people can just go straight there.
Perfect.
Wonderful stuff. Would you mind just giving us a little bit of background to the C.S. Lewis Foundation? Because I had only come across you guys because of the conference. I was just Googling and I found that this thing was happening. But what is the origin of this group, and what are their goals, and what are other activities are you guys normally involved in when the world isn't suffering a pandemic?
Absolutely. So we were founded in 1986. That's when we got our official nonprofit status, although we date back to 72, I believe. Really to kind of deal with the issue of Christians, the increasingly secular world, in many ways identifying Christians as irrational. Faith should be private and not public. And, and whether that's in the world of the arts or the world of higher education, we saw a lot of either Christians themselves kind of going and forming their own groups, or society kind of increasingly seeing faith in a secular fashion, that as a separate, private, irrational opinion, rather than, a full-fledged kind of way to live life, and, that God is real, at least for us. And so Stan Matson, our founder, started the foundation at that point to kind of really tackle those issues and deal with that. Who better to pick than Lewis as a spiritual model of someone who was able to walk within the world of higher education, of the arts and writing and creativity, and also faith, in a very natural, holistic way. Since then, we've restored his home, the Kilns, and we own the Kilns and offer tours there. We host conferences throughout the year. Our biggest one is nicknamed Oxbridge. It's the C.S. Lewis Summer Institute that we have every 3 years in Oxford and Cambridge, England. We also have weekend retreats and conferences, usually in Texas, California, and New England, and we kind of rotate that out in a 3-year cycle. And then now we do a monthly webinar that we started in August, and we'll be doing that throughout the foreseeable future, and even beyond the pandemic. I think we're going to continue that. It's a way for people to connect even when they can't meet in person. And then, but our mission is to equip and encourage Christians to live their faith in the world of ideas and the arts. So, in a lot of ways, our people, our group, our tribe, I guess, so to speak, is one that appreciates the intellect, the world of the mind, the world of faith, theology, and the world of the arts, creativity, imagination. So a lot of times we'll have conferences on writing or the arts. The I guess regular day of one of our events would be a morning session that's a lecture, afternoon breakout sessions deeper on either topics related to Lewis or kind of bigger issues that relate to Lewis in the world and Christianity and the arts. And then in the evening, we'd have a artistic performance. It might be a singer-songwriter or a Christian dance troupe, or it might be Christian drama. So celebrating all three, and that, in the Christian walk, we're called to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and we try to combine those all those areas into a conference as much as you can on earth.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's everything. As I said earlier, I'll put all of the links in the show notes, and we'll share this around, and we'll see you all online.
Wonderful. We'd love to see you there.
And listeners, please join us again next week for another Skype session. Cheers.